This week's video is about how I'm going to teach all of you to help your team win the Splatfest. Whether it's the first time you've ever touched Splatoon 2, you've been playing since the original, or you're somewhere in between. But only if you pick Team Ketchup. If you didn't, go away. Or don't. Just don't collude or whatever. Also, no camera this week because my internet hates me and I need to keep this file as small as possible. In the original Splatoon, Nintendo really reveled in the idea of eventizing everything. Weapon unlocks were an event, gear unlocks were an event, new stages, new modes, but no event was bigger than the Splatfest. Even to the point where a key story beat in this game is a result of the final Splatoon 1 Splatfest. With Splatoon 2, that remains true, but the stakes will definitely be raised because, like I pointed out in this week's Wolf Den Games video, link up here, literally no one actually owned a Wii U. Now that owning a Nintendo console is something that cool people do again, it'll be super beneficial for your social life if you can be a part of them, ruling supreme in the most important thing that can happen in the Splatoon 2 world. That is what I'm here for, to get you ready to be king of the ink, or queen, but that doesn't rhyme, so for the purposes of my sanity, king of the ink. Before you do anything, you need to pick a team. This part is super important. How do you make such an important decision, you may ask? Well, my dear inkling in training, follow me on Twitter and see which one I'm personally raving about. This will always be the right answer. Twitter.com/FanatixFour. Or you could pick what Marina picks. She seems to have good taste so far. Okay, fine. You can just pick your favorite and hope for the best if you're all about the love of the game and having a fun competition and honesty. But if you didn't pick Cake or Ketchup, you're straight up wrong and have already failed yourself, your family, and most importantly, Marina. Now that you've picked Team Ketchup, you need to equip and max out your Splatfest t-shirt and whatever other gear you'll be using. This, if done poorly, can take some doing. Strap in and take notes. If you're completely new to Splatoon, I suggest playing through the single player campaign to master the combat and traversal mechanics unique to the game. It's beneficial to play through because you can get tickets for the crust bucket. Speaking of which, after clearing the campaign and obtaining the 16 available tickets from sectors 2 through 5 before you dive into the online multiplayer to start leveling up your gear and your inkling. This will become important later, so stick with me for a bit. I'll get back to it. If you already have a good grasp of the basics, now may be a good time to jump ahead to the time on the screen. Unless, you like me a lot and want some jokes. The best way to efficiently level in Splatoon 2 would be to win in ranked matches. To do this, you need to at least be level 10, and if you're really new, you're going to want to get to level 4 first to get some better headgear, foot gear, and most importantly, a better weapon, which are pretty important for your success in Splatoon. So let me explain weapons. In Splatoon, I'd say there are 3 major categories that have subdivisions of weapons within them, and there's also mini categories that really only have one variation and aren't directly comparable to the major categories. First would be the shooters. This is the weapon class you're immediately introduced to and is comprised of weapons like splatter shots or your starting weapon, the splatter shot junior. For my money, these are amongst the best weapons in the game, especially if you're going in solo because they are reasonably good at every skill necessary for success in the game, which I'll also get to. Hold your horses. Next would be chargers. Chargers are pretty much sniper rifles. They're really only useful for splatting the enemy team. They can cover ink, but they're not exactly proficient at it. There's 2 main kinds of chargers, those with a scope and those without. Which one is better? Depends on you. Last time I checked, the E-Liter 3K had the farthest range of any other weapon. So if sniping is your game, maybe go with that. The last major category is rollers. Don't use these unless you're terrible. Moving on. What? Okay, fine. Rollers are a good starter weapon. The skill ceiling is low because aiming isn't an issue because you splat by walking, and also by splashing ink by slamming your roller all over the place. People also like camping in ink and slamming a roller down on unsuspecting victims. Don't be these people. A subsect of rollers is ink brushes, with the differences being that they aren't particularly good at spreading ink when dragged on the ground, and they're the quickest way to get around that isn't a squid-based ability like jumping, which you should almost never do, except for select instances, and swimming, which you should almost always be doing. Other subcategories are splatlings, which are miniguns, pretty standard affair, sloshers, which are buckets, not so standard affair. Spend some time in the test area to find which works best for your playstyle. These weapons all unlock at varying levels, so get leveling and then go talk to Sheldon. I'm sorry, it must be done. To pick up and test all of that stuff. For gear, you have a few options. You can buy it from the various stores, or you can order gear either from Inklings you see in the hub world or on the Switch Online app. The items you order generally have high price tags, so you're going to want to stick around towards the end of the video to figure out how to earn cash fast. As far as what you should look for in your gear, you should pause the video here and look over this guide. These abilities are pretty important, and you should prioritize using gear with abilities that, again, best fit your playstyle. You can also change these abilities if there is a particular set that you love aesthetically through tickets that you can get through Salmon Run, which is another can of worms I don't really have time for today. Now that you're not a total scrub, you can start to perform better in Turf War and score some pretty reasonable rewards while increasing the level of your special Splatfest gear and also the other gear you'll be wearing. Chances are this will take you a bit. The process can be sped up in two major ways, the first of which being using those tickets you should have earned through playing the campaign at the Crust Bucket to boost the money and battle experience you receive from a match. The second of which would be getting to level 10 and transitioning from regular battles to ranked battles. This will yield you a better reward for winning, but it's high risk, high reward in that losing doesn't yield much, unlike Turf War. So if you're not super good at the game, stay with Turf War and aim to cover enough ink in each match to gain at least 1,000 points regardless of win or fail. And on the subject of winning, keep in mind that weapons gain what's called freshness on a meter that when filled give bonuses that yield thousands of additional points and or money. So best advice I can give is win all the time. Okay, moving on. This next bit I'm going to truncate as much as possible in an attempt to go beyond saying get good, but also in an attempt to allow me to actually finish this video. So next up, how to actually be good at Splatoon. I'm going to focus mostly on Turf War since that's what Splatfest are based on. First thing you need to know is this isn't Call of Duty. Killing or splatting is 1000% secondary to the goal. It can be beneficial because it hinders the other team's progress, but not beneficial enough to dedicate all of your team's efforts toward. It's best to keep one dedicated splatter, I'd suggest someone good with chargers, and everyone else focus on the goal. Which brings me to my next point. Always be moving. Always spread out. Nothing makes me angrier than when my squad of squids is all in one place. That is not a good way to cover turf. Obviously, clearly you can't cover the most efficient amount of ground if everyone occupies the same space, you may be saying. Well, tell the Splatoon player base that. The easiest way to think of it is be like Freddy from Scooby-Doo and spread out, gangs. Next, learn to use your map to gauge when it makes sense to do pretty much anything. Where should you go next? Is it safe to jump to a teammate? Spoilers, almost always no. Should you use your special? Where are the major threats coming from? All of these things are observable on the map. Use it, even if it isn't as convenient as it was with the Wii U gamepad. Also, ink your spawn, not immediately, toward the end, but make sure it's done. That's where the really close games get won. Finally, some tips on using some specials. First, the ink armor. Use that almost immediately unless you and the rest of your team aren't near enemies. Tenta missiles are most effective if you squid jump back to your base to get a better viewpoint on the whole game. You can pretty much splat the whole team that way. Splashdown is a good one to use when you're being approached by multiple enemies, or squid jump into a teammate, which makes squid jump actually useful for one. For the Stingray, aim before you start shooting because it slows down your aiming while you fire and prevents you from aiming up altogether. The inkjet works well when you move in on the opposing team and use the inkjet's ink stream to help in splatting as well as the obvious rockets. Everything else doesn't matter. Okay, maybe they do matter. Can't be bothered. Leave more tips in the comments for people. Please. I'm ending this video here because my internet died. Share this with any Splatoon scrubs you know. Tell them, hey, you're a Splatoon scrub. Check out this cool video from this channel you should totally sub to. Then watch more videos. Also, you subscribe too if you haven't already. I'm going to bed. See you next week.